tomorrow afternoon for another show, and we plan to turn the tides on them. But again, we're doing great work with Bridges Beyond Boxing with your support. Very much appreciated. We brought 10 fighters over from Boston. All these kids are from under-resourced communities in the Lowell, Lawrence, Dorchester, South Boston, Worcester areas. Gives them a chance to come over here, see a new country. Many of these kids have never been on a plane before. So with your funding, you're doing God's work. So thank you. Thank you, everybody. Much appreciated. Thank you very much. Thank you.
They think they're going to win a couple of days because they think Derry is a lot softer than the Belfast bars. And I hope Maid McLaughlin didn't hear that. All right, next we're going to go to the South Armagh, North Louth area. Remember when we used to call it El Paso because all of the people from Belfast who had to stay down in Dundalk, and the Dukas Oriel region, going to call on them to receive a donation. There you go.
Thank you, Martin, and thank you, everybody. Dukas Oriel want to thank the AOH and the ladies AOH for their very generous donation.
Oh, you're good. You're good.
We don't know how you do it, but you always do, and every dollar is appreciated and spent with thanks. We are based in South Armagh, as Martin said, at T. Cullen in Mullaban. Our overall objective is to rebrand South Armagh and bring its rich tapestry of culture, folklore, and storytelling to the fore. Aristotle said it's not enough to win a war, it's more important to organise the peace. And that's the phase that we are in today as we celebrate the 25 years of the Good Friday Agreement. South Armagh was besmirched in the 70s by Britain's criminalisation policy and referred to as bandit country. And as Martin said, North Louth was El Paso. And unfortunately and unfairly, or maybe not so unfairly, that name and reputation has stuck. We want to contribute to taking back our name and reputation and make South Armagh famous once again for its culture. We've won the war, but now let's organise the peace. You've seen from recent Ireland's Future events, a smaller scale, one of which was facilitated at T. Cullen this year, that the conversation is gathering pace for constitutional change in this country. We've never been closer to a united Ireland than we are at this time. In this new reconstituted Ireland, Dukas Oriel wants to ensure that South Armagh is a centre for culture and arts in the Irish tradition, from Irish language to Irish folklore. There will also need to be a history or storytelling project where people can record the stories to ensure their narrative is heard, and that South Armagh was and is quite rightly a proud people. The area will be a place of culture and debate for all communities as we strive towards the reunification of our country. This is our time to organise the peace and set our own narrative, because we know we can't rely on others. This year, for example, we celebrated the centenary of the 4th Northern Division, and were able to gather up and display photos of local people who were involved. 2 and 3 generations of their families, along with the general public, were in attendance, and the sense of pride was palpable in the room, not just of the families involved, but of the area in general. We were lucky this year to have achieved charitable status, which we hope will open up avenues for us to be able to add to the generous donations that come from you in America. So this coming year, we'll be hoping to develop the genealogy project. We already have people visiting from Texas and Wisconsin who are already aware of their family connections in the area and have made contact, but it needs a wee bit of further research and development. But no matter what we plan, it all takes money, and that's where we're so grateful to our friends in America. We couldn't do it without you, and it's not just about the dollars. It's about knowing that you're all there to support us and wish us well, and to make us feel part of something bigger and more powerful, that we're not alone in our struggle, be it in the war or be it in the peace. So a big thank you to each and every one of you in the AOH and LAOH. We really appreciate everything that you do.
From South Armagh, we're going to go back to Derry. Everyone who knows about the conflict in the north of Ireland is familiar with the iconic wall murals that have been such an inspiration, have given people such a view of the conflict. And the group that does that has applied this year and received a grant for its work, and that is the Bogside Artists.
Hello, big thanks first of all to Martin and the AOH throughout the United States and the ladies AOH. We are indebted, to say the least, for your support. The Bogside Artists are a trio of artists that have created what is known now internationally as the People's Gallery. And the People's Gallery is 12 large-scale murals in the Bogside area of Derry. It tells the story of the conflict. It tells the story primarily of the everyday person who lived throughout that conflict and were there up close and personal and feeling the effects of British imperialism and injustice. On close inspection of our work, you will see that it primarily concerns itself with children. The ongoing injustice towards the murder and death of the children of the area is something that our artwork has kept alive, that story, for this generation, for generation to come, and for history. It's very important to us that our craft, our skill, our talent is laid squarely at the feet of our people, in the service of our people, of our culture, and indeed of our country. Unfortunately, over the last 8 years in particular, we've had no source of support or funding whatsoever. And the murals, as a result of COVID and time and the elements, have deteriorated very, very badly. And some of these iconic images that have been, seen throughout the world have basically faded away. Now, obviously, there's a vested interest in some departments of the establishment to see those works fade away, and indeed even the artists fade away. But I have to tell you that the support that we've received today has ensured that we can kickstart now this year and actually begin to repair and restore and bring life back into the images that have existed now for the best part of 30 years. So I just have to say that your support is more than support. It has been an absolute lifeline, and it ensures that as long as we have breath, as long as we have a molecule of talent, that we will continue to tell this story, to tell this narrative, to use our work as a form of reconciliation and, more importantly, of education, as we take that work in exhibition form throughout universities and colleges and schools, not just here but throughout the United States. So thank you very much. We are, as I say, just to get it. Thank you.
Thank you very much to our friends in Derry. Anyone who's seen the murals and the work they do know it's something really special. I just wanted to reiterate one thing from the beginning, is we do have another organization, the Ladies Ancient Order of Hibernians, making donations next week. And what's so exciting about that, and a lot of you referred to that, their donations are not in this total. In the old days, we used to give our donations together. So today we're giving out $160,000. We don't share the amount that we give to any group with anybody except for the group. And then next week, the ladies are going to come back and they're going to give a whole nother set of donations. So the support from the Ancient Order of Hibernians and the Ladies Ancient Order of Hibernians will grow next week as well. And I think that's important to remember. Go ahead, Martin.
Okay, and again, we want to congratulate and commend the ladies for the tremendous work that they've done, and you'll see that next week. All right, next we're going to come back to Belfast and another of the iconic campaigns, this one, which was so effective that the British response was to say, we need a new law that'll stop anybody else from getting an inquest or a civil proceeding or any of the other things, because the Ballymurphy massacre families, when the truth was shown, it damaged the British so badly. That was the only way they could end it. And we have John Tager from the Ballymurphy massacre.
On behalf of the Ballymurphy massacre families, I want to thank you for your continued support. I'm coming over here today, start reminiscing about when that support started. In 2010, we landed in America, in New York, and heading to Washington. We were warmly greeted, although it was -18 outside. We got a warm welcome from all those involved. From them, we have made many friends along the way. Some of us that with us here today. I have to remember the good work was done by Rita O'Hare, who supported us and guided us on them tours, and the work that she's done for many years. And our thoughts are with Rita's family today. Some of the work that our families have done, we wanted to set a pace and work very hard for who come behind us. And that work was very hard. It was a fight at every day when you have the MOD and the British government. You have to remember 2011. After we had left America, a congressional hearing, we were granted our inquest. It took another 7 years before we got till the final day in May 2021, where all our loved ones were entirely innocent. In that journey, along that journey, we had our friends from America actually sitting in court, listening to the lies that was brought from day one when our loved ones were murdered, 11 civilians, now entirely innocent, in the words of the judges. For some of the work that we do, some people may think that with the campaign for our loved ones' names to be cleared, we continued and to give the British government, the state, and our kicking when we brought them to the civil courts, where we won that case also. Now, for 11 people to be entirely innocent, that's a crime. There's somebody that needs to be accountable, and we're on the path for where we can pinpoint what soldiers were involved and also bring them and make them accountable. Some of the work for yourselves, I want to thank the ladies AOH, David, our good friends in America, all the Irish American friends who met along the way. This next year, we hope to set up a memorial to all our family members, a memorial garden, remember them. And that for that to be possible, it has to work from yourselves, do good donations from yourselves. And that continues, and we hope to have that garden to remember all our loved ones up and running next year. It couldn't be done without your help, and I want to thank you on behalf of all the families. Thank you very much.
We're next going to go back to County Tyrone. We talked about the tremendous work preserving and maintaining the graves of Irish patriots in Belfast. In Tyrone, that work is done by Tyrone National Graves.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yes.
Imagine my is Misha Eamon Hanna, Ceatharlach of Tyrone National Graves Association. On behalf of the Tyrone National Graves Association, I'd like to thank all the members of the AOH and the AOH for your continued support and help throughout the year. Your financial support enables us in the Tyrone National Graves Association to carry out our vital work of the maintenance and of memorials and graves of our patriot dead in County Tyrone. Our members' work is all voluntary, and we are dedicated to remember all those in County Tyrone who have given their lives for Irish freedom. As an organisation, we rely solely on voluntary donations from people like yourselves and from the public. And I'd like to thank personally all your members for all their continuing support. I met Martin there last week, and I'll be meeting Marlon in the 12th, I think it is, the date in Carrickmore. So looking forward to that. So once again, on behalf of the Tyrone National Graders Association, I'd like to thank all your members for their continued support. Thank you.
I did meet with them in Carrickmore Garden and was reminded that 39 years ago, I was the speaker at the Easter commemoration. I don't know if that's good or bad that people remember that. That's how old I am. All right, next, we're going to go to a new group, and we're celebrating the Good Friday Agreement 25th anniversary. And of course, for many of us, for all of us in this room, a key part of that agreement is the provision that is going to lead to a referendum, that is going to lead to a chance for the Irish people to vote for freedom for all of Ireland, the thing that the AOH has always stood for and have been one of its constitutional purposes. And we're going to call on Niall Murphy to represent Ireland's future.
We're going to watch August currency Glenda McGree false all war occur over leg or Murray in St. AOH August Numras and AOH. We're just delighted that Danny, Martin, Vincent, and all the members of the AOH have travelled to Belfast to be with us today. This is an important time in the history of our nation. We are the generation that will see the reunification of Ireland, and it's our privilege to be alive to contribute to that debate. But change doesn't happen by itself. Change will not come by virtue of the good grace of a British Secretary of State. Change needs to be made happen, and that's why our organisation, Ireland's Future, exists. I've personally admired the work of the AOH in my professional capacity. I work as a solicitor. I've worked with many of the groups who have been supported by the AOH over the years. And whilst I admire the moral support which is provided, the political connectedness that the AOH benefit from through generations of activism does create momentum and effects change in Washington, in Congress, in Senate. We appreciate that, we admire that, and we want to build a relationship with you. There will be referendums in Irish unity. It's our analysis that will occur this decade. This is the time that we must plan and prepare, and that's what Ireland's future exists for. We have two ambitions. We want to impact social discourse. We have seen in Britain how not to effect constitutional change. Brexit in 2016 is almost like a big bang for our generation because Brexit changed everything. An arrogant political class foisted upon, with no disrespect, an ignorant electorate, a question to which no one knew the answer. How does Britain exit the EU? And that is a question which is plaguing Britain, but is also plaguing our island. So we have seen how not to effect constitutional change. We want to do the opposite. Ireland's future exists to procure and publish evidence. What does an education system for an all-island nation look like? What does a health service look like? How can our economy be unleashed for the betterment of every person in our society? So we want to procure and publish evidence, but we also want to contribute to the conversation. We have recently, in the last 6 months, had the largest United Ireland conference, perhaps certainly in living memory. In the 3 Arena on the 1st of October, over 5,000 people attended to listen, to understand what people were saying. We had the benefit of 10 political parties, including 5 party leaders, a collective mandate of 2.2 million people, all speaking on the same agenda. How can we reunite this island? Martin has correctly referred to the Good Friday Agreement. That is the roadmap. Schedule 1 of the Northern Ireland Act, which is the legislative outworking of the Good Friday Agreement, provides for a border poll. So how do we achieve a border poll? That's what Ireland's future exists for. We want to inform the social discourse with evidence, and we want to create platforms for that to be publicly discussed. In November, we occupied the Ulster Hall. Could have been sold out 5 times. The place was sold out within 3 days, 1,800 people. Next June, June 2024, we have booked the Odyssey Arena, the SSE Arena, and our ambition is to put 10,000 people in that hall. And there is an energy in this room, and I'm sure that it can be picked up upon on the webcast. All of the groups who have benefited from these contributions, which we know are hard-earned and hard-raised, will benefit all of our communities. But there is an energy in Irish society now which we want to capture and we want to unleash. And with the assistance and benefit from our friends in America, we look forward to your continued support. And thank you so much for this grant. Much appreciated. Remember.
And we're going to go now to South Down, a county we haven't mentioned yet, I don't believe, and to the O'Neill Alsop Flute Band.
Hey everyone, thank you. My name is Aaron Fagan, and I'm current band sergeant of the O'Neill Alsop Memorial Flute Band. I'd like to take this opportunity to welcome the AOH to Belfast and to thank them for their very generous and continued support. The Jim O'Neill Robert Alsop Memorial Flute Band is based in the New Lodge area of North Belfast, and we take in members from north, south, east, and west of the city. Also, members currently joined from outside the Belfast area. The age to join the flute band is 13, and our current membership is 46. We are managed by a committee consisting of local Republicans, including former POWs, and we practice each week in our local community centre. With support from the AOH, last year we brought our members on an educational enhancement visits to of our country's history. These included Kilmainham Jail, Moore Street, the GPO, the walking tour of Dublin, Glasnevin Cemetery, and throughout these historical tours, we brought to life the songs of which our members play when we are marching on the road. We learned where the songs came from and what events and actions inspired some of these songs. We've seen and experienced firsthand many of the sites which have only been heard through song, and we really, really had a good time. This year's funding, we intend to bring our band along to our National Hunger Strike commemoration in Cork City. We will be there and we will visit several historical sites with the support of the AOH, and we have been able to attract more young people to the band and to increase the appreciation of music to the wider community. We are at present preparing to take several Easter Rising commemorations across the Belfast area next week and to remember Ireland's Patriot Dead. We are planning over the next year to make more professional videos of the band and to make a short documentary about the band and the Fine Iron. Throughout the continued support of the AOH, we can see a bright future ahead. We would like to invite you all to follow us on Facebook at O'Neill and Alsop MFB and to subscribe to our YouTube channel at O'Neill and Alsop MFB, where you will get to see all activities of the band and the benefit of which your donations have helped us to carry out.
Next, we're going to go back to County Tyrone, one of the cross-community groups that we support, the Oma Choir.
Hello, good afternoon to Belfast, and good morning to everybody joining us from the US. My name is Daryl Simpson. I'm the founder of the Oma Community Youth Choir, which was founded back 25 years ago in 1998 to coincide, as we now know, of the Good Friday Agreement. We firstly want to extend our thanks and gratitude to the AOH for being included in this year's grant. As a charity, the choir now celebrates, as I say, 25 years. And we felt that this year it was important to highlight the inspirational work of the choir and the work that it has achieved over the past 25 years in providing a model for peace and reconciliation within our country. I think the fact that we do coincide with the Good Friday Agreement also shows that our young people have been instrumental in becoming a symbol for peace, both here locally and internationally. We have toured and visited the US on several occasions over the past 20 years, including a very poignant performance at Ground Zero back in 2003. So with the money and the help that you have provided this year, we wanted to run a series of events inviting former members and people who've been involved with the choir back to do specialist commemoration events and celebration of the work that we have done. So to Danny and to Martin, I say thank you very much for your interest in our work over the years, and we look forward to seeing and meeting with you all very soon. Thank you.
Next, we have another first-time applicant. I thought this group was in Derry, but the chair I know for a long time is from Belfast. The Martin McGuinness Foundation, represented by Aidan McAteer.
Thank you, Martin, and thanks to Danny also on the AOH. We are this year first-time recipient of this grant. So Ahas Moore and Dawn, Orm and Shaw, representing the Martin McGuinness Foundation. We were established in 2019, 2 years after Martin's death, and our mission is to remember Martin, to celebrate the contribution he made to the struggle for Irish freedom and unity, and also to be part of building on his legacy and building a better future for all our people. We do specific areas of work around reconciliation, around well-being, around education. The two main things that we focus on at the minute is reconciliation, working with David Latimer and the elders of the First Presbyterian Church in Derry, building on a very significant, important and groundbreaking relationship that Martin had established with the Reverend David Latimer there. And we continue that work today in Martin's memory. We also organize a bursary scheme because Martin was very convinced that the centrality of education in freeing people, in liberating people, in liberating communities, and building resilience and capacity. So the bursary scheme and this very generous grant from the AOH will help us to build that, to reach more young people who, and the purpose of the bursary is to facilitate people who will find it without some financial support to further their education. So this is an enormously important contribution to the work we do. We are so grateful for that. Grateful to our friends across the United States. Many of you will have known Martin, will have met Martin. Martin traveled so often to the States. He loved the States. He wrote a beautiful poem about New York, taken off from the New York airport. I think it was JFK, and he wrote a beautiful poem about sunset over Manhattan. So he loved the States. He loved traveling to the States. He loved meeting people. He celebrated and was very conscious of the contribution of the Irish diaspora and the contribution in particular that the Irish in the US had made and continue to make to the building of a better future for all the people of Ireland. So I wanted to say thank you so much to the AOH for the contribution that you've made to the work that we do, and hopefully we can continue that collaboration in the future. So Garamila Mayoga.
We're going to go back to Tyrone to another cross-community group in the spirit we've just heard spoken about, the Oma Thunder basketball team.
Go ahead, Eamon. Eamon, you're muted.
How's that now?
That's good. Go ahead.
Hello, my name is Eamon Daly. I'm the past president of Division 39 in Tacony, Philadelphia. I moved to Ireland and my family farm in 2003. And in 2005, I started the Houben Thunder youth basketball team, cross community, all different sides. And at that time, it was after the Good Friday Agreement, the worst tragedy and all the troubles happened in Houben in 1998. And it was very hard to get it started because basketball was not a big thing here in Northern Ireland. But we got it. I went around to all the different high schools and got children from all sides of the community to join the club. And I'll always be most grateful to Ned McGinley, who bought our first baskets and scoreboards when he was president, and all the presidents since then that have been so helpful. To put it simply, there would be no Houben Thunder Basketball Club without the AOH. We're very fortunate to come to America twice, and the children will always remember that. And like I said, we're not a big sports team over here, but it's getting bigger. And in 2020, the pandemic put a big stop in our club. We couldn't train anymore. Our numbers went down. But now with the co-chairman, Aidan Bradley, who coaches the senior team, we're in the playoffs for all of Northern Ireland. And I wish him all the best of luck and appreciate all his support as well. But to put it simply, there would be no Houben Thunder basketball without the AOH. And thank you very much for your continued support.
All right, we've developed a tradition here. The group that hosts us and does the most for us, we abuse by making them last. Danny will introduce our last, certainly not least recipient, but I do want to again thank everyone who attended. I can't tell you, we set records to get donations because of how much people want to support you, the work you're doing, Freedom for All Ireland, and the individual contributions that your group make to it. Nothing that I could say would match that, would have that effect. The impact of your words today, which will be on YouTube, will be watched across the United States, and I'm sure our members are going to contribute again. So if you apply next year, they'll be still looking to support you until we get that referendum that Na was talking about, and we finally get that freedom that the AOH was actually started to achieve in the 1830s. All right, next, the man who makes it all possible, our national president, Danny O'Connell.
Thank you, Martin. And he just says that because I'm the one that knows how to run the camera. So, but we had Father Gary last for a couple reasons. What a great host. Plus, we weren't sure if he would be awake yet. He was on a late night flight, and I had the opportunity to spend last night with him. And he lives. When we talk about cross community, he lives it. He travels with a very good friend of him that's a reverend from another faith. He works with, when he was in New York, he had dinner with a rabbi that we work with on a regular basis. He was a driving force around this center that opens up to 2 different communities, has doors to bring us all together, and we can leave any differences outside the door. And we're all here today kind of celebrating that. Father Gary won one of our most prestigious awards, the McBride Award. And he's also was invited to say the prayer opening the speaker's lunch a few years ago. And Sean Pender, if he was here, would tell you it was the longest opening prayer of the speaker's lunch ever. And Father Gary, though, was smart. He said, I had a chance to speak to every member of Congress, and I was going to take every advantage of it. We couldn't do this without you, Father. Thank you for all you do. I don't know anyone who comes to Belfast that doesn't know Father Gary. And when you're done, and we're going to give you your little check presentation, and then if you would give us a a closing prayer for the group. Father.
Good afternoon to you all, and special thanks, obviously, to Danny and to Martin and to John and the delegation that's here from the States. And thank you, John, for bringing the sweets for Mommy. Because there's one thing, you always keep the Mommy happy, and he brought the sea sweets. While I was away, it was a kind of a whirlwind tour to Boston, Harvard, and Boston College, speaking with former Taoiseach Bertie Ahern, Joe Kennedy, the new Minister of State, Steve Baker, who has a bigger conversion than St. Paul had on the road to Damascus, and various different people. It was quite an amazing trip. In fact, I'm so jet lagged. I said to somebody earlier, instead of saying jet lag, I said I was shipwrecked. So it was just. Now, while I was away, I have to thank the wingman, as he's affectionately known, Brian McKee. I also have Michael Hanna here, who's been associated with the AOH and with fundraising for here, and Brandon McFarland for helping set up this today, but also for the musical entertainment. It's a wonderful place, the Houben Centre. It's called after Charles Houben, who was a little passionist, who was a Dutchman, and he struggled with the language. He struggled with the studies, never got back to Holland, never saw his family again. And he was based in Mount Argus in Dublin. And at one stage, because there were over 300 people coming to see him every day, because of his ability to be able to be involved in healings, that the local wags in Dublin were selling the holy water out of the fonts. So he was sent up here to Holy Cross. And this parish was opened in 1869, which makes it the oldest parish run by a religious order in the island of Ireland. After the Holy Cross blockade, we went to renovate the church, wanted to lift people up because of that horrible situation that actually happened. And the next part was here, and the pipe dream was to make it a centre. And it is iconic because one side opens onto the PUL, the other side opens onto our own side. And every day people are mixing and with the cafe, and it's so important. But one of the things is, if you're attached to a church, funding is a serious difficulty. And Brian and I were at Mastery Foundation Intensive, this very grandiose title of a course, and sitting beside me was a fellow from Clones, and I'm from Newtown Butler, so Clones is only 5 miles up the road, and it ended up that I turned to him, and there's this multi-million-pound peace centre funded by peace funding. And I said to him, when did you last see on Garda Síochána with TSG gear on? Has there been that many water cannons deployed in Clones? And here's this peace centre, yet the epicenter. And to put it in context, when I spoke in the UN a few years ago, the loss of life in this parish is the equivalent of 50,000 people in LA, 4.2 million in America. And so that has had an enormous effect on both sides of the community. So what are we doing? And particular with Brian is working with young people. In fact, we took 20 of the young people who are most involved in interface violence, and we took them to South Africa, to Cape Town, got them, to use the colloquialism, the screws to lock us in the cells with child killers, young people who are 15, 16 years of age. On one occasion, a 16-year-old had killed 5 people. We get them to meet the armed gangs. One occasion, there was a wee fella from Ardoyne turned around and said, "There's only an Ardonian could." He said, "Do you ever kill anybody in that?" And to which your man said, "My first was 9. Now, you could imagine the shock in the room. But this man had been thrown out when he was 6 years of age, out onto the street. One of the gangs had trained him up, and at 9 years of age, he came behind another hitman with a snub 32 and took him out. So I suppose you could use the colloquialism. We were trying to scare the bejesus out of our crowd, bringing them over there, seeing them, the futility, letting the mothers of both the victims and the perpetrators, see what happens if you get sucked into violence. Our city is another program. I invited Sean Pender or Sean Campbell to lead a pilot project between the Shankill and Ardoyne. To tune, we've had 140 young people who've graduated from University College Galway in order to be able to get a certificate that registers them at 3rd level. Now, I've been lucky to receive an honorary doctorate from Ulster and from Queen's, and using that platform, Queen's are now going to allow that graduation. So you'll actually have the imagery of this: parents from the Shankill, parents from Ardoyne, watching their children graduate and receive their certificates. And for the first time, maybe in their family, someone achieving that. One young girl is called Chelsea. I call her Halifax Town or Swansea City, because her father is a loyalist. He put a death threat on me 17 years ago, and but a few years ago, then he gave me £40 for climbing Crowpatrick. Such was the change. Now, Chelsea hadn't enough points to get to uni. She did the Leadership for Life course. When she got to uni, she flew through it. And absolutely, she went on a placement to the States and came back. She was absolutely phenomenal. Now, Pierce, when Brian and I were walking that road every night for 3 years during the Twaddell protest, a £20,000 operation every single night that cost over 20 million, we were walking, we spotted Pierce. We took him off the street, pulled him in. He now flew through his degree as well, and Pierce and Chelsea are an item. So they're courting each other now. So I said, I'll do an ecumenical job for you at some stage if you want. So that's the kind of work that we're involved in. We don't do vanity projects, and we don't do the hand wringing. You know, like, God, I was at some of the stuff in the States there, and there was people, and they were talking about things like integrated education. Now, that's fantastic, and I'm all for people making choices. But sometimes it's forgotten about our schools on both sides of the community, how they were peacemakers right through the conflict, how they were there for people, and that's often undermined. And the other thing is, you know, you can't just put Shamey and Sammy together in a room, and if they don't thump each other at the end of the week, that they get a star, because they're going back into raw sectarianism. And that's what we're trying to address that. So the night before I left, this stunning haircut was actually over there. One of the young people that would have been involved in that was cutting hair. There was acupuncture, there was health, there was massage, and there were all the young people were there. Chelsea and Pierce were there. But those young people, one of them was wearing a Celtic top, one was wearing orange. So if you come in with a Rangers top, fair play to you, son, because that's what your culture is, that's where you're from. If you're wearing an Antrim jersey, or if you're even very special and wearing a Fermanagh one, and that's what we have. Like, and I have a photograph of them the night before, and the wee fella from the shank with the orange top, the guy with his arm around him is the guy with the Celtic top. And that's what we're trying to do. We don't do the antiseptic stuff. We don't do the stuff for show. And sometimes it's really, really hard, because once you're associated, like this very building, you are such an important part of this, because we didn't get the millions that they got in Clonus, whatever that was about. We had to abseil down the Europa, golf classics, black tie dues, and do it all together. But one of the constant support for the Houben and for the peace and reconciliation is the AOH and LPOH. And very proud to be associated with you. And looking around the room, there's so many friends here and so many people that have been involved in wonderful work. And in the 25th anniversary of the Good Friday Agreement, our thing is, George Mitchell said so many wonderful things. One of the things he said was, winning the peace was one thing, maintaining it was the other. And thank you for all you've done to help us to do that.
Now, we're gonna make him work for his money. He's gonna say a prayer here. But what you don't know, and I learned last night, when he climbed Crow Patrick, he set a record. The longest trip up Crow Patrick in the history of the mountain. So he told us that proudly last night, and we were very proud of you for making that trip, but more proud of you for what you do every day. So if you'll give us a closing prayer, and before we go to the prayer, remember Tim Noonan, who's running this back home for us and getting this up online. Tim's doing a great job for us. So when we're done here, Tim, you could turn us off. So thank you very much, Father.
Okay, thank you. Because of an underlying illness, I was told I couldn't climb it. It takes 2 hours to climb it and an hour and a half to come down. It took me 5.5 hours to actually do it. And there was a Sikorsky helicopter waiting to take me off, but we made it. So on this, the eve of the most sacred week of the year, Holy Week, I ask the Lord to bless all of you that are here and your absent family and friends, to bless the work of the AOH and LAOH. Who often through such effort to raise funds, because we know, Lord, how difficult it actually is to be fundraisers. May you bless all of you, and we ask that this week, the sacred week, that we also bless as we journey towards the 25th anniversary of the Good Friday Agreement. We bless all who down through the years were involved and then became the peacemakers. Bless the hearts and minds of people, soften the hearts and minds of people, so that this peace, that we would not be looking upon it as something as historical, but something that's true and something that is here today. May Almighty God bless all of you now with peace, hope, happiness, and good health. In Anamanaher, August and Vic, August in Spirit, and Eve. Amen. Bless you all.
Thank you.